Tata Motors, one of India's oldest indigenous automotive manufacturers, has had a torrid love affair with the car. Keep in mind, they have manufactured and introduced absolute legends in their time. The Indica, the Sumo, the Safari, the Nano, and in more recent times, the Nexon and the Harrier. But now Tata Motors is all set to embark on a new journey, and the start of which is this, the all-new Altroz. Tata Motors has laid emphasis on the exterior shape and form, and this is a fairly appealing package. Out here in the front, there's some fantastic detail touches, especially with this hexagonal pattern on the grille. There's also this mirror finish edge to the front hood, which kind of peeks out, but if you look closely, it actually sits flush with the grille. This front end, the headlamps, well, they wrap around the car, go all the way up the fenders. While in the Tiago, this was a completely different separate set, a completely different element. Out here, it looks like a single unit running across the front of the car. It's got big muscular fenders, and coming to the side as well, there's a large glass area which is further emphasized by this black mirror finish border on the shoulder. And this essentially gives it more space, makes it look more spacious, makes it look like there's more window room and therefore a more spacious cabin. A very interesting design feature, of course, is the hidden latches on the rear doors. We've seen this in previous cars before. Tata Motors, well, have added to that because the latch is no longer on the outside. You've seen some of the latches on other cars on the outside, but here the latch is hidden on the inside. Coming back towards the rear, very edgy touches out here again. Something that we've not seen before in a hatchback of this order. Quite appealing, quite attractive. There's the Altroz badge right across there. The variant badges, well, they haven't been placed on this car as of yet, but production cars will have them. Overall, where the form is concerned, I think it's a very interesting touch. Another very interesting touch I'd like to point out over here is right here on the windscreen. This is symbolic. You've seen touches like this on several Tata Motor cars in the past. This one, the Altroz, well, has that bird over there. There's also that embossing done on certain elements inside the car, inside the cabin. I'll show you that in a minute. But I think I'm quite impressed with the way the car looks overall. The name of the game is premium, and the effort has been to make the Altroz's interiors, this cabin, as premium as it can be. And to that effect, Tata Motors has used several materials quite nicely. If you look at the dashboard out here, it's got, well, several layers from the top to the bottom. Some mirror finish elements, some brushed, metal finish kind of elements, some textured elements. All of that has blended together nicely to form a very attractive looking interior space for that matter. Space, again, come to think of it, Tata Motors, well, has made spacious cars in the past. They continue to do so right now as well. And the Altroz is a fairly spacious cabin. Two people out here, the passenger and the driver, can sit comfortably. Well, you aren't going to brush shoulders with the passenger. But coming to the fascia out here, you can see it's got a flat bottom steering wheel. There are certain touches that I like, especially on the steering wheel, where the horn buttons have been placed on the arms of the steering wheel. If you look over here, you've got the two symbols for the horn. It's got all the controls for cruise control, audio controls, infotainment, everything on these arms itself. Out here, it's got a floating screen, a TFT screen. Now, this has all the features that you would need from an infotainment system. There are lots of practical touches inside this car as well, one of which is the glove box. If you look at it, it's got a removable tray, which I thought was quite nifty. In addition, like I mentioned earlier on the exterior styling, there you see that peacock right there. I do like the way this has been designed. You can keep your cups out here, or you can place something that you'd want out here in these two cup holder kind of cubby holes. There is a space to put in your papers. There's even a card holder, which is quite impressive. Also keep in mind, we've got a cubby hole under this armrest. Not a lot of space in there, but I do like the thought where this has a magnetic clasp. Overall, I think this is a very well turned out cabin. I think it's quite impressive to be in. keep in mind most people will be spending the larger part of their lives, owners especially, sitting inside this car, and to that effect this is quite well turned out. Here's an interesting observation, especially if you noticed it. These doors, all four of them in fact, open up 90 degrees. That's something you won't see in most other cars for that matter. And this effectively gets you better ingress and egress into the Altroz, into and out of the Altroz. And that's also because, keep in mind, it's a very rakish design. There's a steep angle to it, and because of that, the headroom, or rather, it's very difficult designing the space like this. It's also got at the rear slightly coupe-ish form. So for taller people, getting in and out of this car could have been a challenge. Also considering that it's got a flat floor out here with a higher lip. If you look at this, it's a higher entry point. So it was essential that Tata Motors got the doors open as wide as possible to provide the best entry and exit points. Now, space, there's plenty of knee room out here. Tata Motors cabins have always been spacious, and rear seat passengers will find enough room in here. 3 people can comfortably sit abreast. It won't be the most comfortable journey, of course, but 3 people in a pinch can be accommodated quite comfortably. The armrest, nice and broad, a lot of depth in there. So if 2 passengers at the rear, you will never touch elbows. Overall, I think it's a very, very well turned out cabin. You've got some nice touches again. You've got the AC vents out here, can be adjusted, as in it can be opened and shut. There's also a 12-volt charging point, but I think this is still old school, and Tata Motors would have done well to just provide a single USB charging point or 2 USB charging points. Would have made that a lot more practical. Overall though, it's a nicely turned out cabin. I think they've done a fantastic job here. Visibility in the Altroz is quite impressive. The front windscreen is large, there is a thick A-pillar, but the windows are also fairly big, so you've got enough of room. I would have liked that outside rearview mirror to be a smaller unit, which would of course improve external visibility, but nonetheless we have to work with what we've got, and I think it still does the job, or gets the job done as well as it can. Well, I do find the design of the Altroz very attractive. It is very appealing, it does catch the eye. There are a few concerns that I would like to voice out, and one of them especially is this very rakish front end. That steep angle for the front windscreen, along with this very deep dash, means you get a lot of reflections thrown off onto the windscreen, and they can be a bit disturbing. This happens throughout the day, but is at its strongest when the sun goes on up high. Another concern I had are the wing mirrors. They've got chrome garnish in them. It reflects or bounces off the light, the sunlight, and that can affect vision because it bounces straight into your eye. Tata Motors will offer the Altroz with 2 engine options. There's a petrol and a diesel. At this moment, there are all manual transmissions that we are driving. However, future models, whether an automatic will come in is highly debatable because the cost could really go fairly high up. Also considering both these engines, the petrol and the diesel, are already BS6 compliant. So that is anyways going to hike up the price. The petrol is a 3-cylinder unit, displaces 1.2 litres and makes about 86 PS with 130 Newton meters of max torque. The 3-cylinder, not the most refined engine that I've seen in this segment. It is a bit noisy, it is a bit gruff. Also, the 86 PS, I wish it had a little more power, somewhere close to about at least 90, with a little more refinement, simply because some sections in urban areas or out on the highways, if you've got hilly sections out on highways, you are going to struggle with the power outputs because you're constantly going to downshift. In most conditions, the petrol is a good car to drive. However, there is a fair amount of engine noise that you can hear inside this cabin. I'm not sure if it's audible on the microphone right now, but there is a fair amount of engine noise. The diesel, on the other hand, is a 1.5 litre turbocharged unit, and that is a beautiful engine throughout. I've enjoyed driving that car. It's a fantastic engine. You get 90 PS of max power with 200 Newton meters of max torque. So torque is there throughout the rev range. You can stay in 5th gear and the drivability feels very flexible. I was quite impressed, very impressed with the way the diesel performs. Tata Motors hasn't revealed what the fuel efficiency figures for the Altroz are as of yet, but I expect it to be in the same order as any of the other cars, which is fairly fuel efficient for that matter. So it will be comparable to the rest of the cars in the segment. The 5-speed manual transmission, fantastic gearbox all throughout, well matched to the torque curve of both petrol and diesel engines, but I would have liked a better shift quality. In the petrol, it felt a little sticky. In the diesel, was absolutely brilliant, no concerns whatsoever. But yeah, that bit, for that little more dynamism, a little more fun to drive factor, I think it could have had a slightly better shift quality. The steering is well weighted. The electronic power assist is nicely measured on the Altroz. It's accurate, it's precise, it's got just the right amount of feedback that you'd need. It's not the most dynamic of steering wheels in the segment, but nonetheless it does the job. It does it with confidence. It feels safe. It keeps you secure. You know what you're doing with the car. There's been a lot of work done on the suspension front as well. At the front end, there's a McPherson. It's an independent suspension, a McPherson strut. And at the rear, the torsion beams. Ride quality is brilliant. Absolutely impressive. I haven't been this impressed by a Tata Motors vehicle where ride quality is concerned, for that matter. Also, the handling. It's a very neutral car. The car manages to hold its line through a corner quite confidently. Impressive, good enough for everyday use, good enough to be driven on the highways with a lot of confidence. The Altroz has got 4 trim levels, but more important than that is Tata Motors introducing a whole new customization program with the Altroz, which means there are several elements that you can specify and ask for that can be fitted as an aftermarket fitment, and that would make this car far more appealing both on the inside and of course with some outer exterior details as well. One critical aspect that Tata Motors has worked on has been the safety bit, and in that respect, the Altroz's brakes, for instance, you need a lot of stopping power, you need accurate stopping power. I mean, absolutely fantastic. It's well modulated. There's a lot of force. Mind, this is the front disc with a rear drum setup. But along with ABS and EBD, which is electronic brake force distribution, the Altroz's braking is very impressive, as safe as it can get in a car of this order. I'm quite impressed with the way the Altroz has turned out. And Tata Motors has nailed it on almost every count. The Altroz has got fantastic ride quality, it's got great drivability, it's got a great feature set with some very thoughtful and practical touches inside that cabin. The space inside that cabin also is very impressive, and remember, Tata Motors has always been known for making very spacious cabins. And all of that has been packaged in a very attractive shape and form. It would be ignorant to ignore this car any longer. In fact, Tata Motors' Altroz stands shoulder to shoulder against any of its peers in this segment.